Hi guys, making this video to talk to you a little bit about mental framing in the very particular context of injury recovery. Because at the moment, unfortunately, I've injured myself. So for those of you that I won't have spoken to about it, received a knee injury last night while grappling, which is part of sports in general, but particularly combat sports. So first and foremost, if the partner I was rolling with sees this, obviously making 100% sure that he realizes was not his fault. This was just one of those scenarios where bad luck occurred. So for my grappling friends watching this, to give you an exact idea of the mechanism of injury, I was in lockdown, which is a half guard position on top. He put a flare on my knee, so assuming this is my left leg. The flare was external like this, which generates pressure on the knee, but nowhere near enough to tear it unless he's superhuman. Obviously, it's wildly uncomfortable, but it's not going to do any damage. But what it does is take my body weight to that side so he can get on top. And that's the scenario we found ourselves in. My leg being flared out to the side, we start to turn over, and we hit the point where I'm able to balance and stop getting turned over, and we were stationary. At that point, I try to recover top position. My leg stays over here, my whole body comes back this way, and then boom, which happens. There was a lot of, let's say, external rotation, probably a bit of rotation on the actual joint itself. Went to A&E to get it scanned to see the extent of the damage. They wouldn't do an MRI without a physio referral, so I've been referred to a physio who will refer me back for an MRI, most likely. They did some preliminary tests to see the extent of the damage. It hurts along the LCL, so the ligament outside of the knee. The exact mechanism that caused that injury is very unlikely to be the LCL, but that's exactly where it's hurting. So it's a bit of a bizarre one. They suspect it could be the meniscus, or there could have been enough rotation to damage the LCL. Not 100% sure at the minute. Either way, knee's injured. So once that occurred, it put me immediately in a bit of a downer, because grappling, as I've said many times, has always been my anchor. It's something that I always have as a constant in my life. So no matter what's happening, and obviously it's been a crazy year and a bit for everyone, grappling still remained for me during that time. I know, sorry, but it was an anchor that kept me sane, and it always has been there for me. So the thought of not being able to do it was very daunting, obviously, because it's just a central part of my life and has been for a long, long time. So straight away, I was pretty upset. Obviously not on my training partner, but upset at the situation that, you know, there's grappling competitions this year that are now in doubt whether I'll be able to compete, depending on the nature of the injury. There's a marathon in October, again, that depending on the nature of the injury, whether I'll be recovered enough to participate. So I started kind of getting into that thought process of focusing on all the things that I may not be able to do. And obviously that is a recipe for feeling pretty shit. And then I kind of just had a pause, took a deep breath, and tried to think of the positives. So what can I do? Instead of focusing on the things that I can't do. So I know for a fact, assuming it's a minor injury, a few weeks and I may be on the grappling mats. If it's a more severe injury, a few months maybe. But either way, the speed at which I return has been predetermined by the extent of the injury already. I don't have control over what's happened. I can only control what goes forward. So obviously I'll do my rehab, but I can't control how long it will take for me to get back. So fair enough, what can I do? Well, immediately I switched to, okay, what can I do to keep myself involved in the grappling world? So obviously, solo, watching a lot of instructionals is going to be a big part of my future for the foreseeable. But still going back to grappling classes, just to learn. Even if I can't do the techniques, I can watch them, I can record them, and I can be mentally involved. And I'm still in that social circle with my friends where I get to participate, for one. And I can still learn, I can still take away from the sessions, so that I'm not completely distancing myself from it, because it's, for me, much better to be partially involved than to not be involved at all. So I already made up my mind that obviously my classes are still going to be running as normal. I may not be as hands-on as I usually am, but you know, I'll do what I can. But when it comes to actually learning myself, I'll still be in classes, and I'll be working on what I can work on. I believe it was Gordo who kind of developed the half guard game. And if I'm right, I think it was developed because he had a knee injury and couldn't play full guard. And that led to him becoming one of the most prolific proponents of the half guard game. He developed a whole system from there. Obviously, I'm not holding such high hopes to reinvent the half guard game, but there are things I can do. So I've got that, you know, as a positive. When it comes to lifting weights, again, a huge part of my life since I was a kid. Obviously, at the minute, anything rotational is going to be out completely. But I've already had the go ahead for sagittal movements. So straight lines, if you're thinking squats, hinges like deadlifts, for example, those are going to be okay, obviously at a lesser intensity. Single leg exercises are probably going to be out for a while, because on single leg, it's much harder to control the stability of the knee. And the last thing I want is to be loaded with an unstable knee. You know, the idea is that, okay, I may not be able to do this. And if I focus too much on the things that I'm not able to do, obviously it's going to be bad for my mental health. But then just switch it up. What can I do? That applies to everyone. So no matter what the scenario, whether you've received an injury, whether you've fallen off your diet and you're focusing on how hard things are, if you're trying to reach a goal and it seems like a long way away from you, you can't control a lot of the things within that journey. So try not to focus on the things that you can't control. You may not be able to control the outcome, but you can control your behaviors. So for me, I can control my behaviors now to try and influence the speed at which I recover. I'm just going to focus on what I can do. I can do my rehab to strengthen it. I can still learn grappling without physically being involved in it. And that's the best advice I can give anyone in this specific scenario where you're injured or whatever it may be. Focus on the things that you can do. Put the positive spin on it, and you just find yourself in a much better space.